You're listening to the Better Relationships After Baby podcast, where I believe your relationship can be stronger than ever after having a baby. It just takes tools, conversation, and support to help you get there. I'm Chelsea Skaggs, certified life and relationship coach, mom of two, and survivor and thriver of tough relationship challenges after babies. I'm committed to helping couples just like you improve your communication skills, connection points, and personal confidence so that you can have the life and family you've always dreamt of. Now, let's get to today's episode. Sometimes it feels like we're living in a completely different world from our partner. We base our feelings and our reactions and even our conversations on the story that's running through our heads. And when those stories don't match up, it's easy to hit misunderstandings and disagreements that we don't actually have to have because they're not even based in reality. This can be especially true when you have a new baby. There's so much going on. You barely have the time to sit down and get the real story from your partner. Does it sound familiar? I'm Chelsea Skaggs, mom of two, wife of almost 12 years, and a professional life and relationship coach for new parents. I know that topics like getting your relationship back after having a baby can be taboo, but not here. This is your place to see that you're not alone, you're not broken, and there are ways to get back to you after the twists and turns of becoming parents. Let's talk a little bit about what happens when we let mismatched stories guide us. And then we'll talk about some examples that I see with new parents and some ways that you can improve this area in your life so that you have a stronger connection, so that you have more conversations and decisions and moments based on what is true and what is real for you and your partner. When we're doing this out of mismatched stories, this can build resentment. You might start resenting your partner for something that isn't even true. You may be imagining that your partner doesn't care, when in reality, maybe they're having a hard time adjusting and they don't know how to present themselves. You might be telling yourself that your partner doesn't desire you physically, when in reality, they are just so touched out and their body is so tired and their nervous system is so dysregulated that they don't even know how to receive touch. We build this resentment around the stories we tell ourselves, and then resentment becomes part of our conversational interactions, our physical interactions, our emotional interactions. So we want less false narratives, creating this disconnect. And that's why this topic is important to be exploring and learning more about how this is impacting you and your partner and what to do about it. You might be creating more negative feelings. You might feel inadequate or unloved or undesired or unsupported, all based on a story that's maybe half the truth or partially the truth or doesn't have much truth in it at all. And when this happens, it's easy to spiral into feelings of loneliness and frustration. And one inaccurate story can actually grow into a number of stories with branches and pieces that are built on something that is not the whole truth. We might also be avoiding important issues. Sometimes you may avoid addressing a real issue if you've convinced yourself that everything's fine, or even gaslighting a partner's needs when we tell ourselves a more positive story that isn't accurate. So most of my examples are going to be creating stories that are disconnecting us because we are thinking the negative or we're bringing in the negative. But sometimes we also paint a rosier picture than the experience that's happening, and we're shutting the door on conversations that need to happen. So the tips below are going to, or the tips to come are going to address both of those things. So here's a few real life examples that I have seen either in my own life or in the couples that I work with when I'm doing relationship coaching or speaking to a group or doing a kind of workshop. The first one, probably the most common, is touch out and physical desirability. If you spend the day taking care of baby, you are touched out. Every touch might feel overwhelming. And what can happen is your partner might start to feel like you don't desire them anymore because you're not initiating intimacy, or maybe you're even like rejecting intimacy. When in reality, you're trying to get back to a baseline of feeling like yourself and getting your nervous system into a healthier place, and you just can't fathom more touch. But if we're not talking about this, what happens is that we have a partner who feels rejected and we have another partner who just feels overwhelmed. Like it has nothing to do about rejection or the other person. It's just them getting back to themselves. But without identifying this, we continue this story of she doesn't want me. She doesn't need to feel connected to me anymore. She doesn't love me anymore. And I'm being very gender stereotypical here, but this is what I see most often in my couples. Maybe it's all he wants from me is is to be touched or sex or intimacy. He's not taking time to take care of me emotionally. He doesn't respect that I need some space in my body. And when those things are not communicated, we continue these stories and we just keep kind of moving farther and farther apart, more and more disconnected. Another area I see this happening is in the desire to help versus the confidence to step in. Your partner maybe wants to be with a baby, but doesn't feel confident or doesn't feel competent, or maybe feels judged or criticized when they do step in a way that their partner would do things differently or has something to say about it. So we have the partner that is starting to step back more and more because of that lack of confidence or because they are fearful of being judged. And on the other side, we have a partner who's like, my partner isn't doing shit. They're not stepping in. They're not helping me. They're not seeing me. They don't even understand, or they don't even care about how much I need help. And so we interpret hesitation as laziness or disinterest or putting all the work on one partner. And we then actually see that maybe someone has a whole different narrative going on in their head. Maybe it's not that they don't want to help, but they have this story and experience in their head. And what we want to do is make sure we're both presenting, hey, what I'm thinking, or like the way this is, the story I'm telling myself and the way this is happening in my head is blank. What is going on for you around this topic? We often see that once we do that and we get the things out of our heads, we get them out on the table to work with, that's when you're able to build more teamwork and more connection and ways that you can support each other. Maybe one of you starts making all the decisions about the baby and the household. Maybe because that feels efficient, or maybe because that's your skill set, or maybe because you're like, well, if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? And the other partner then starts to feel left out or cut out or undermined. They think you don't trust them to make good decisions, or you don't want their opinion. And so they step out more. And the story they're telling themselves is that they're not valued. And the story that the person who started making the decisions is telling themselves is that they're not valued. And really, both people are wanting to value one another, but they're not sure how. Again, this is why we have these conversations. A personal example that I want to share is when my husband was working overtime and we had a new baby at home. And when he was working overtime, the story I told myself was that he was avoiding his responsibilities at home. He was leaving me feeling lonely and resentful and exhausted. And surely he knew how fucking hard every day felt for me. And he was choosing to not be there, to not be stepping in as much, with as much time and energy and attention as I wanted. And on the other hand, his story was completely different. He felt unsure. He lacked confidence with the new baby. But what he did know is that he could work hard to make more money and make life easier for us. For him, it was a sacrifice. He was sacrificing time away from home and from his family in order to do what he knew he could do to improve our lives. So I was boiling with resentment, thinking that he was choosing work over us, while he was resenting that I had that time at home and he was sacrificing. We were both exhausted. We were both frustrated. During those times, I felt like I was carrying the entire burden of parenting. Every time he left for work early or came home late, my mind was spinning the tales of abandonment and neglect, and life must be so much easier for him. I was resenting the time that he had away. I was asking, like, why doesn't he want to be here? Why doesn't he care? And on the flip side, he was thinking, I need to work harder. I have to make sure we're financially stable. I'm doing this for us. I resent that my wife gets to be home and gets to be with the baby more than I do. And so when neither of us were talking about this for a long time, it impacted the way that we were communicating. It impacted our intimacy or lack of intimacy. It impacted the way we felt going out socially with friends and family because the way we were thinking about ourselves, the way we were thinking about one another, and the way we were thinking about us as a team. And it created a huge rift for a long time. The stories, and this is just one example, but the many stories that we were telling ourselves, because like we were going through so much change that we didn't even know how to vocalize a lot of it. This is what I say with a lot of my clients. Like, it is work to figure out how to vocalize things in the midst of so much change. Additionally, there is less time than ever to connect when you have a new baby at home. And so you might be filling in the blanks because you haven't been able to have that conversation because your brain is just looking for an explanation for things or to, again, like fill in those gaps and blanks. And it takes a lot of unlearning and mindset change and humility, really, to get to a place where you are sharing the story that's in your head and allowing your partner to help you shape that based on what their real story is and what your real story is and what can be discarded because it's not even true and what can be worked with because it is the true experience for you. So what can we do about this? And these are based on things that my husband and I did in our relationship early on and the things that I help my clients to do on a daily basis. Start with clarity. Try starting your conversations with the story I'm telling myself is fill in the blank. Put your story in there. And then this is key. You ask the question, is this how you're experiencing this? This is not accusatory. It doesn't create defensiveness. It is sharing. I'm taking the things in my brain and I'm sharing them with you. And now I want to know, like, is this your experience of this particular situation or conversation or need? And then it invites them. It invites them to share what's in their brain and to do this in a safe way. It opens up the space for honesty and understanding. I really believe this simple phrase is incredibly disarming and it creates a way for genuine connection, which is what we need and what we want. The next thing is value work. So taking the time to align on your top values and priorities. It cannot all be a priority. You cannot do and be and have and prioritize everything. So when you're making sure you're working from the same foundation of your shared values and your shared priorities, then you are able to make decisions or take a next step more seamlessly, more in sync with one another. This is a great thing to do during regular check-ins. So setting aside time where there is a regular check-in. This doesn't have to be long, but just a few minutes where you know that you're coming into it to share what are the stories that are going on in your head this week or today, and how can you discuss and work together to make sure that you're working from a similar foundation. This is time to just touch base about how each of you is feeling and the stories that are in your mind. I recommend doing this as part of a weekly business meeting. This is something I teach a lot of my clients to do, where we intentionally create space for logistics, the things that need to be done around the house and with the baby, checking in on things and conversations and actions from the last week, and having a conversation about what went well and what didn't go well and what you want to adjust. This is a great business meeting time to have those check-ins on the stories you're telling yourself and what's going on in your head. And it creates kind of an intentional neutral space so that this isn't happening when you're emotionally heightened or in the middle of a disagreement or feeling specifically vulnerable. Another way to do this is through journaling together. So sometimes writing down your thoughts can help you clarify these stories that you're telling yourself. A lot of people do well processing information by writing it out. And so take time to both write, maybe it's on this specific topic that's causing a rift or disagreement or resentment. Take the time to both write. How do you see that? What is your story and perspective of what's happening? And then you can share your entries. This is a safe way to explore your feelings without immediate confrontation, and where you can each process it out by writing and then share in a way that you feel more confident and connected to what you're sharing. And then therapy or coaching. Sometimes these issues are just really hard to navigate alone. Seeking help from a professional like a coach or a licensed therapist can provide new perspectives and tools to help you both understand each other better and give you a neutral third party to help you get on the same page. Something I hear a lot from my clients, and actually specifically the men that I work with in relationship coaching, is that having a neutral third party is very, very helpful because both people can get their thoughts out, get their feelings out, put it out of their heads and into a space it can be worked with. And as a coach, a third party is able to give that some strategy, give that some insight, give that some mindset shifts where it's for the goal of the team winning. It is pro your relationship success, both as individuals and as a couple, with a little that non-biased perspective and a third party. So I help my clients to get the stories out of your head and then help you work to get back on the same page so you can be a strong team and get back to your happy place in your relationship. If you have felt misunderstood or disconnected from your partner lately, which who hasn't, I would love for you to join my free Fighting Better challenge inside of my Facebook group, Better Relationships After Baby. This is going to take place in mid-June. We'll be diving into the top reasons new parents fight and exploring the mindset and strategy changes to help you argue with more respect and find real solutions. You'll notice here, my goal is not to make you stop fighting or stop arguing or stop disagreeing. I actually think it's a very healthy thing to address arguments and disagreements with an approach of growth together, but that requires learning how to communicate your needs and your thoughts, how to meet your partner where they are with their communication and personality styles, and how to work on building a foundation that is your teamwork, your family, your growth together. This challenge is all about creating a stronger, more understanding relationship during one of the most challenging times of your life. So again, that is in the Better Relationships After Baby Facebook group. That is a free Facebook group where we have some of my best resources. We have conversation prompts, ways to connect with other moms, and a monthly challenge. And in June, that is going to be the Fighting Better Challenge. Let's work together and make sure that the stories we're telling ourselves align with the love and commitment we have for each other. At the end of the day, we are all in this together, like on this floating ball in space, trying to be good humans, trying to be good partners, trying to raise these little humans in our lives. And it's messy and it's imperfect and it can feel like we are doing everything wrong or that we are just totally broken. But we're not. We are in this together. I am rooting for you as you learn and grow. And I hope that you'll join us in the challenge so that we.
If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you take a minute to help spread the word. As a small business owner, shares and reviews go a long way. So share this episode with a friend, share it on your social media, and please leave a review if you haven't done so. This helps these messages get to more mamas, and you guys, that's how we change the world.